Hello girls, and welcome to this video. Today we're going to study the grammar, the comparative, the superlative and the equative, so that you can work on your video since we don't have class for the next week due to the Easter. So we're going to start working with the comparative, and this is an explanation you can find in your book in Word English. That is Unit 4, page 44. You can find this explanation as well, just in case you want to revise it. So let's start. We have the comparative. So we are going to learn this grammar in order to know how to compare things. So in this first example it says the comparative expresses similarities or differences between two people or two things. That's very important. So we have two people or two things. So we have one thing here and other thing here. So thing number two, one object and object two. Then the comparative is formed with the adjective. So we need also an adjective. That's very important. So we need an adjective. And what is an adjective? Something that we use to describe an object. For example, the blue house, the big house, the red house. So adjectives are those words that help us to express and describe one thing or one object. Then it says that we have to use then, and we have two options, right? We can use er in here, so let's write it here. So the possibility, so adjective plus er, then, and then the objects. Okay, so we're going to see the examples here. So we have the first example here that says the small intestine is longer than the large intestine. So we have our first object, that is the small intestine, and a second object, that is the large intestine, right? We have our adjective, that is longer, in this case long, and we use er for the comparative, and then we have then, right? So in that case we have an example of the comparative. Now let's try to make a different example. So let's suppose that we have the adjective tall, right? The adjective tall. Then we need our object 1 and an object 2. So let's talk about Pepito and Juanita. So in this case we have our object number 1 and our object number 2. We have our adjective already, that is tall. So now we need to finish the sentence. So in order to describe and compare, I have to say that Pepito is, and then we have taller. Pepito is taller than Juanita. Pepito is taller than Juanita. So we have object 1, Pepito, object 2, Juanita. We have the verb to be, in this case, that is here. So, and we use is because it's the singular form for Pepito, right? Remember that if we use a group of people or plural noun, we have to use are. So in this case we say Pepito is taller than Juanita, right? So we have the ending er, and then we have than. In this case what we're saying is that Pepito is taller. So we have Pepito here, and Juanita is here. So Pepito is taller, right? Is taller. Okay, so that is one example, and we have another example in which we have to use more or less. So let's just erase this example here, and let's use The same example with that different adjective. So we are going to use Pepito is, now our adjective is going to be intelligent. Intelligent. Then we have to use than, and then we have our object number 2, that is Juanita. Juanita. Right? So in this case, we have that our adjective is longer, you see, it has more syllables. So in tall, we have only one syllable. What is a syllable? Well, the number of sounds that we can hear in a word. Syllable, sorry, that was syllable. The number of sounds that we can hear in a word. For example, tall, we can hear just one syllable. But when we have the word intelligent, we have different sounds. We have in, te, li, gent. So in that case, we have 4 syllables. That means that we need to use more. Okay, in that sense, we are going to use Pepito is more intelligent than. So as we say, more intelligent than. So in that sense, what it means is that according to the number of syllables that the adjective has, we are going to use either er or we are going to use more. So that means that one syllable adjectives, they use er. One syllable adjectives, sometimes 1 or 2 syllables. Okay, so we have some examples with 2 or some examples with 1, but with time we are going to learn them. So we use er with 1 or 2 syllables. And we use more with 2 or more syllables. 2 or more syllables. Example, tall, 1 syllable, so we use er. And then we have intelligent, it has 4 syllables, so we use, in that case, we use more. Okay? That would be the comparative. If we have a plural noun in here, remember we have to use the verb to be in plural. Let's just change our objects. So and let's write objects, students in plural, students. In class are, so in this case students are, then we have students are, because this is plural, right? Okay, if it's singular, we use the verb to be in singular. Pepito is just one person, but if we say the students in class are, so that's plural, so that's why we use the plural form of the verb to be. So what's the idea of this? As you can see, to compare two objects. In here we compare Pepito and Juanita, and in here we compare students in the class are taller than Juanita. Okay, so we compare two objects. That would be the explanation for the comparative. Okay, remember, just let's recap. We compare two objects, and according to the number of syllables, we are going to use er or more. If it has one syllable or two syllables, we are going to use er. If it has 2 or more syllables, we are going to use more. Remember, we always have to use than in the sentence. Okay, than is always there. Okay, So that would be, thank you for paying attention, and see you in class.